So, hello everybody, here we are back with the next installment of Chits and Cats Soundbites, the Black Riders. Tonight we're going to talk about A Knife in the Dark, which is the second quest from the Saga expansion box, the Black Riders, but actually the fourth quest in the Lord of the Rings LCG Lord of the Rings expansion, because you also have the two standalone ones which you can put into the campaign, namely the Old Forest and Fog on the Barrow Downs, which we covered last week. So the story so far, our friends have managed to escape the Shire, and they have also managed to escape the Old Forest and the Barrow Whites, and they have met up again with Tom Bombadil, who has saved them and who has taken them safely to the road to Bree, where he has said his goodbyes, and he returns home to Goldberry. And Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam take their ponies to Bree, where they arrive towards the evening. So the gate is already closed, so they have to knock, and they are let in. And they make their way to the Prancing Pony, where they are hoping to meet Gandalf. So the first quest in this adventure is also called Trouble in Bree. So essentially what you do is you first of all put the Prancing Pony into the staging area, as well as Bill Ferny. Bill Ferny in the story plays a very important role. He's a man from Bree, and we learn over the course of the story that he is probably working with the Black Riders and has probably been paid by them, bribed by them. And he is going to stay with you in the staging area because he's got a very, very nasty trait. He cannot be optionally engaged. Now, he's got an engagement cost of 38, which means he's going to stay with you for a very, very long time, because you also don't want your threat to go up that high very quickly so that you can just get rid of him. The problem is, as long as he's in the staging area, he will force you to add one Black Rider or Nazgul to your encounter deck each round. Or you have to increase your threat by 1 for each non-ring bearing hero committed to the quest. So that's a big issue, because in the beginning you probably don't have very many allies in play. So usually everybody goes questing. In my case, you know my deck, I've got I've got questing central with Glorfindel, who doesn't exhaust if he's got the Light of Valinor. He quests for 3. If I don't have the Light of Valinor because I didn't draw it on my first hand, or even on the mulligan, and I have to quest with him, I have to increase my threat already, and then Bill Ferny will make me increase it one more time. But then again, it's a toss-up, because you also don't want to have that many Black Riders in your encounter deck. So it's really difficult, and you really have to check out your own strategy and build your deck accordingly. So for this one, I actually added quite a lot of cheap allies that quest for a lot of money, for a lot of willpower, like the West Road Traveller. I don't know why I've never used the West Road Traveller before, but since this Saga expansion, I'm totally in love with her. She's a great character to have on your team. She quests for 2, and she has a really neat ability, which is a response, so it's not something you have to do, but it's optional. When she enters play, you can change the current active location for another location from the staging area, and I think you forego any travel effect. So that's a really neat ability, and she only costs 2, and she has 2 will. So all of those nasty cards that force you to get rid of, or that reduce allies' willpower, and then force you to get rid of any ally that has a willpower of 0, she's not really affected by this, because her willpower is 2 to begin with. So that's really good, because a lot of questing allies, like the Erebor Record Keeper, only have 1 willpower, which isn't really that much. So it's it's a really good ally to have in your deck. So I put 3 in. Also, of course, story-wise, what happens is when the guys arrive in Bree and at the Prancing Pony, they hope to meet with Gandalf, but we all know that Gandalf doesn't make it because at this moment in time he's held prisoner by his friend Saruman. But of course they do meet someone who turns out to be a really valuable asset, namely they meet Strider Aragorn. So I believe that, you know, they couldn't really say, okay, put in Aragorn, because the problem is Aragorn is one of the heroes from the base deck, from the core set, and he's one of the, if you only have the core set and the Black Riders expansion, and you can play the Black Riders with only the core set and this expansion, he's probably one of your most valuable heroes. So if they had said, okay, they're going to put Aragorn in as an objective ally, probably 90% of people would have had a big issue with this because they have him as their starting hero. And if you change heroes during the campaign play, you have to modify your threat and bring it up by 1 notch. So they made a really intelligent decision not to make him mandatory as a part of the expansion, because otherwise you would have had to build your deck accordingly. But this only works if you go through every single quest up front to check what might be happening there. So the Prancing Pony allows you, when you travel to it, and this is something you should do because it's got 2 threat and 4 exploration, so you should do this on your first travel phase. It allows you to bring an ally into play. Now the way I play it is usually I want to have Faramir in my starting hand because he's a really expensive ally for 4 cost, and you can bring him in for free, and he helps you quest like crazy. And then, of course, if you have Faramir and you have the Ring Bearer and you have, let's say, 2 more allies questing, you may actually not even need to increase your threat or shuffle in a Ring Wraith, because you will be questing for a lot. So essentially what you have to do is you have to get 8 exploration on the Trouble in Bree. You also have to get rid of the Prancing Pony, and you also have to essentially try and mitigate the Black Riders that may come in, because there are some in your deck, regardless of the fact that you also add some later on due to the effect that our friend Bill Fernie brings in. But we also have another issue, and that is the spies. Because what happens in this story is that the Prancing Pony is full of people when our friends make it into the main area of the bar and restaurant. And there's the squint-eyed southerner, and then there is the shady Breelander, and they basically behave like normal patrons in an inn until such time as Frodo makes a really stupid mistake and puts on the ring accidentally after, you know, it's actually a weird situation. They are undercover, so he goes by the name of Underhill, and he meets other Underhill hobbits in the Prancing Pony, and they believe that, of course, they must be related, sharing the same name, and they keep talking. But unfortunately, someone mentions the name of Baggins, and it becomes quite clear that one of his cousins is about to spill the beans and give away his true identity. So in order to distract everyone, he jumps on a table and sings a song. And first he gives a little speech, and then he sings a song. And the song goes down really well because it's a lovely drinking song, and everybody enjoys it, and it goes on for pages in the book. And then he jumps up and down in time with the music, and he falls off the table. And then the ring does something that basically is probably the first clue for readers of the book that it has a mind of its own, because it falls out of his hand. He has his hand in his pocket, and then as he falls over off the table, the ring slips onto his finger. Now, anyone of you who's ever had a ring in their pocket and played with it will know that it's quite unlikely for the ring to slip accidentally over your finger. But the ring, the One Ring, can do this, and it's even said in the book that it may actually change its size so that it fits different fingers. So of course it can make itself a little bit wider if it wants to slip onto your finger. Likewise, it can make itself wider if it wants to slip off your finger. And as a result, of course, he vanishes. And people are totally upset by this, and what the hell is going on, and people start leaving. But of course, some people are genuinely upset. They think that there is some weird thing going on here. People are maybe also afraid. I mean, maybe this is a wizard. What's going on here? Magic, whatnot. But then there are those who see beyond the physical evidence that somebody has just vanished, and that is the spies. And they leave, and then they meet at Bill Ferny's house later. And these guys are enemies that will enter your game, and the problem is that they bring about the ring raids. So the squint-eyed southerner, when you reveal him from the encounter deck, you either have to shuffle in another Nazgul that was set aside at the beginning of the game, or you have to reveal another encounter card. So that's really annoying, because there's quite a lot of them in the deck. I mean, they're not so tough. They're quite squishy actually, but still they are a problem. And they have nasty effects. And of course, you always have Bill Ferny hovering in the background with his ability, which means, you know, if you don't shuffle anyone in, but if you do quest with a non-ring bearing hero, you will end up increasing your threat. So once you have fulfilled your quest in Bree, you have teamed up with Aragorn, who's going to take you into the wild, and he will take the hobbits to Weathertop and to Rivendell. Oh, well, to Weathertop first. It's the old watchtower of Amon-Sul, and it's probably one of the most beautiful sets that they built for the movies, in my opinion, because the Grand Watchtower of Amon-Sul is really a very evocative set that they built, and the whole Weathertop scenario in the movie is one of the best ones I think we've ever seen. So, in Into the Wild, we first encounter a particular location called Midgewater, and Midgewater is a marshland, and in the book, they walk through this marsh for several days, and it's dreary, and it's wet, and it's where they don't get their second breakfast, and not 11sies either. So it's a really terrible place to be, but also it's full of midges. So if you are, if you've ever been in the west of Ireland, you will know what this is like, because they will really eat you up. These are terrible beasts, and of course they basically descend on our friends, on the hobbits, and they make their lives a misery. Now, there's one thing that you need to know about it, and in game terms. First of all, it goes to the staging area. And while you're in the wild, at the end of each round, you either remove X progress tokens from the current quest, or you shuffle, again, one out of play Ring Wraith into the encounter deck. Annoy, annoy, annoy. However, that's not so bad. What is bad is you cannot go beyond this stage while the Midgewater is still in play. Now, the Midgewater has 6 exploration points. This one also has 6 exploration points, and at the end of each round, you lose 1. However, as soon as you make Midgewater the active location, you cannot engage any enemies anymore. They can also not take any damage, so you cannot attack the staging area if you've got, for example, Legolas with hands upon the bow, or the Great Yew Bow, or if you have Dunhere who can attack the staging area. That's not happening, mate. It's not going to happen. You can't do it. Also, you cannot, they cannot attack you. That may be a good thing, but what happens is you have a build-up of enemies in the staging area. So you will, sometimes you have location lock, there you will have enemy lock. Because once we have done this, and once we have gone through these, we will end up at Weathertop. And in Weathertop, we meet the Nazgul, and we also meet the Witch King. So the problem with this is, of course, that during your stay in the Midgewater location, you will probably end up with a lot of really bad enemies in the staging area. So what I do here for the Midgewater is I bring out my Asphaloth and I try to get rid of it because it's not immune to player card effects. That's very important. You can Asphaloth this one. So that then I can concentrate on Into the Wild and then just make it to Weathertop, really rushing and running, because Weathertop is immune to player card effects. And while Weathertop is in the victory display, each enemy gets -1 threat, which is really good. And if you want to travel there, you need to exhaust the one ring. The problem is when we look at the Witch King, who's also in the staging area, as soon as you arrive at 3A, when the one ring is exhausted, he gets -30 engagement cost. So his engagement cost will be 15, so he will engage you. So this is one of the ones, since you, I mean, the good thing is you don't have to put anything on the Ringwraith's attack 3B stage. You don't need to put any progress on this. So here the strategy is clear out every single enemy you have, engage them like crazy. You know, go to locations, it doesn't matter, don't go to Weathertop, because as soon as you go to Weathertop, the Witch King will attack you. So ideally, you don't want anyone else in the staging area but the Witch King. Then you travel, and then you hopefully kill him, because he is killable. He's got an attack of 6, so here you would want Elrond and Arwen. So Arwen gives Elrond an additional defense, +1, so he's at 4. And he's got a burning brand on him, so you don't care about those stupid shadow cards anyway, and he will take 2 damage. So that's half a damage. That's half his life points. So you need a Warden of Healing, or you have a Sylvan Tracker. You need some healing if you don't have the Plate Mail. Interestingly enough, also, remember what I said about the West Road Traveler with the willpower of 2? The Witch King, you cannot defend against the Witch King with characters with 1 willpower or less. So you could not defend with quite a lot of normal defense meat shields that you have, because a lot of them have 0 willpower or only 1. However, our West Road Traveler on her high horse can defend against him. She will also die, but she can defend against him. So that's very important. If you don't have anyone with willpower 2 or higher to defend against him, it will be undefended attack. So it's really important that you calculate with this. He's got 5 shields, but if you have, let's say, Unexpected Courage, on Elrond, you have a normal tactics hero like Harmer, and you have Glorfindel, who's of course got the Light of Valinor. Between them they have 8 attack. That gives you 3 right there. If you then also have another 2 or 3 allies with even just 1 attack, you can get rid of him. You know, 2 vassals of the Wind Lords plus our heroes, and he's done for. So it is possible to kill him, even in 1 round. You just have to really manage your allies, or if you use weapons, you just have to get them. Because also, once he's engaged you, and you unexhaust the ring in the next round, his engagement is again 45, and it's highly unlikely that your threat is at 45. So if you've got daggers of Westerness, just even if you have 2 of those, you know, you will attack for an additional 4. If you have the Blade of Rivendell on Glorfindel, you know, -2 to the to his shield. So it is not a problem to kill him. It's really very tactical, because you have to say, when are we going to move to Weathertop? When are we going to engage the Witch King? What defenses do we have in place? Who's going to defend? But essentially, this is a manageable situation, and it should be, because in the book, what happens is Frodo and the hobbits are attacked by, I believe it's 5 ring wraiths, and the Witch King of Angmar is one of them. And Strider is somewhere else. He's looking around, and they have the daggers of Westerness, which they got from the Barrow, and Tom Bombadil gave them the weapons, and they are being attacked. And Frodo puts on the ring, and for the first time he sees them as they are, so he can look beyond the darkness that their shrouds hide and see their true faces. But also, once he does this, he's in the shadow world and they can see him clearly. So the Witch King goes forth and stabs him with a Morgul blade in the shoulder. But he also slashes at him. He doesn't hit him, but he hits his shroud. And I want to call it shroud because it's much more of a shroud than a cloak. And his dagger basically also is destroyed. But they drive them away, because also Aragorn returns with 2 burning brands in his hand, and he just basically uses fire to disperse them, and they flee. So it should be a manageable battle for you, because obviously in the book, yes, you do get through. It needs to be tough, but it's, in my opinion, it should be a lot less tough than fighting a Balrog, where of course we lose Gandalf, and Gandalf sacrifices himself, because that is a deity. These are just, minions of Sauron. They are powerful, but they should be doable for even a Hobbit band. A Hobbit group could definitely win that as well. So, how do I feel that this Knife in the Dark story is played out in the game? Well, to me, it's actually, for some reason, although it's very iconic from the films, and I love the scene in the films, it's one of the best scenes ever. It didn't speak to me as much as the travel through the Shire and the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs did. So I think I played this one maybe 4 or 5 times, and for some reason I was actually able to grasp the right strategy really, really quickly, and possibly also because my deck needed very few alterations, if any, to win against this. So it was one of the ones that I could actually go through really quickly, which is probably also why it's much less memorable. Whereas, it took me ages to figure out the Old Forest and make sure that I put 12 wounds on Old Man Willow to get it. And also, for some reason, although it is an important part, because Frodo receives the wound, which again changes the story, and which again changes him physically and mentally. I wasn't as invested in that part of the story, neither in the books nor in the film. And to me, this is almost like one of the ones in the middle. It is the middle part of this saga, and it's a good one, but it's not memorable either mechanically nor storytelling-wise. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not one where I could give you a lot of insights, because it just played really smoothly. But it's a good one, and of course it's part of the saga, and it should be played, and you should go through it because it is important, because you receive a very, very serious wound, which you actually then get as a burden for the third installment called The Flight to the Ford, and we will talk about this very soon. Bye-bye.